Look at your kitchen floor. If there is a bowl down there, something in this house eats out of it and drinks its water out of it. And that something has a name. Now look at the counter where the knife lives, or open the fridge. There is almost certainly an animal in there too. Same room, about one step apart. One of them is family, and one of them is dinner. Does anyone who lives here find that strange? Ask why, and the answer arrives fast. Some animals are smart, some are loyal, some look up at you and clearly want something from you. The rest are just livestock. It feels obvious, which is why almost nobody checks it. Long before anyone wrote anything down, that sorting had already happened, and it did not happen for a single one of the reasons you would give. Start with intelligence, because that is the reason people reach for first. If cleverness earned an animal a place beside the fire, the pig would be asleep on your couch tonight, and the dog would be in the freezer. In a laboratory in the United States, researchers sat 4 pigs down in front of a computer screen with a joystick. 2 of them were Yorkshires, 2 were micro pigs. The pigs pushed the joystick with their snouts to steer a cursor across the screen and drive it into a target. All 4 turned out to be farsighted, so the monitor had to be pushed back from their eyes, and their own snouts covered the screen while they pushed, so each pig had to look, shove, then pull back and check what it had done. They hit the target far more often than chance would give them. One of them was landing it 3 times out of 4. Now, read the names the pigs were given: Hamlet and Omelet. Somebody spent months teaching an animal to operate a joystick and named it after a breakfast dish. That is not cruelty, and it is not stupidity. That is a category running quietly in the background of a person who studies pigs for a living. So, if it is not intelligence, what is it? A group of psychologists found a way to put the question on a table and measure it, and the result is uncomfortable in a very precise way. They took 80 adults and told each of them about an animal none of them had ever heard of, a tree kangaroo from the forests of Papua New Guinea. Everybody got the same creature and the same basic facts. Only one thing changed between them. Some were told it simply lives in the trees. Some were told it sometimes gets knocked out of those trees in storms and dies. And some were told that people there eat it, with a short line about how it is cooked to keep the meat tender. Then everyone was asked one question: how much can this animal suffer? The people who had been told it gets eaten came back with lower numbers. Same animal, same paragraph. One extra sentence about a plate, and its capacity to feel pain shrank in the minds of strangers who had never laid eyes on it. Now, watch the detail that makes this hard to explain away. Being told the animal dies did nothing. The storm version, where kangaroos fall and die with no human anywhere near them, produced no drop at all. Death was not the trigger. The word food was, which means the border is not sitting inside the animal. It is sitting in the label, and you can watch the label do real work. Researchers at a university in the north of England went to more than 500 dairy farms and asked one small question: do you call your cows by name? Just under half of the farmers did. Those herds gave 258 liters more milk a year than the herds where the cows had no names. A name is not a nutrient. What the name changes is the human. Somebody who says a name walks up differently, moves slower, shouts less, runs a hand down a back that flinched yesterday, spots the limp a week earlier. The cow does the rest of it herself. And this is why an animal on its way to becoming meat gets a plastic tag in its ear with a number on it instead. No committee ever decided that. It is simply much easier to load a number onto a truck. Now travel to the Andes. In the highlands of Peru and Ecuador, guinea pigs live indoors, loose on the kitchen floor, sleeping near the warm stones by the fire, eating the peelings from the family's dinner out of small hands. They have been kept in houses that way for thousands of years, close enough to touch, underfoot, all day long. They are also the meat. The same animal that sits in a plastic cage in a child's bedroom on one side of the world is running around a warm kitchen floor on the other side, waiting. So, which one of those two is the pet? Take another animal entirely. Horses are eaten in France and in Japan, where thin, raw slices of it are a specialty, with their own name and their own restaurants. In Britain and the United States, the same meat is close to unthinkable, and when traces of it turned up in supermarket food, the reaction was closer to a crime scene than a recipe complaint. One animal, 1 century. One species of human doing the judging. The only thing that moved was which side of a line the horse happened to be born on. Back in Europe, the line is sitting inside the language itself. Why would one creature ever need two separate names? In an English field, you have a cow, a pig, a sheep, a calf. On an English plate, you have beef, pork, mutton, veal. The animal words are old and homegrown. The meat words came over with the Normans. The tidy story that the conquered raised the animals while the conquerors ate them comes from a novel rather than from any document. But the split in the words is real, and it is still in your mouth every time you order dinner. Nobody planned a second vocabulary for one creature. It grew anyway, and it works. So where did the original sorting come from, if not from affection? From arithmetic that was running for thousands of years before anyone had a word for a pet. So what do you think blocked all the others? Out of every large mammal walking the fields and plains of this planet, humans have ever managed to domesticate about 14. Not for want of trying. A candidate has to grow fast enough to be worth feeding, breed while penned up, eat something cheap, keep its head when cornered, and live in a herd that already follows a leader. So a human can step into that slot. Fail any single one of those, and the whole project collapses. Zebras look like horses, and almost nobody has ever ridden one, because a panicking zebra sinks its teeth in and does not let go. Now, go to Siberia. In the late 1950s, a Soviet geneticist started an experiment on a fox farm outside Novosibirsk, and it is still running today. Every generation, the calmest 10th of the foxes were the ones allowed to breed. That was the only thing anybody selected for. Not ears, not color, not the shape of a face. Now watch what the bodies did. Within 6 generations, the foxes were licking hands and wagging their tails when people walked up through the snow. Then the bodies began changing on their own, without anyone asking. Ears went floppy, tails curled, snouts got shorter and rounder. Fur came out blotched with white, in patches nobody had drawn. Faces stayed young, looking well into adulthood. By the 15th generation, their stress hormones had fallen to roughly half of what a wild fox carries. Nobody was breeding for cuteness. Cuteness showed up by itself, riding along behind calm. Sit with what that means for a second. The soft ears and the round face are not the reason we let these animals through the door. They are the receipt for having let them through already. We did not pick pets because they were adorable. They turned adorable because we picked them. A category works like the door in a house you grew up in. After a while, you stop seeing that it is a door at all. You simply know which room is yours, and which room you do not walk into. And if a stranger asks you why, you invent a reason on the spot, and it comes out sounding like it was always there. The line between a pet and a dinner is a door exactly like that one, cut into the floor of almost every kitchen on Earth. And the reasons came later, after the wall was already up. And the sorting has not stopped. It is still running in your head, quietly. So when exactly does it switch on? When psychologists tested this, people rated an animal's mind as smaller the moment they learned it was going to be eaten, and the drop showed up again when the study was repeated years later by a different team. It is not a belief anybody argues for. It is a small adjustment your head performs on your behalf, so that lunch stays comfortable. Then there is the rabbit, which somehow never got sorted at all. In one city, on one afternoon, a shop on one street sells you a rabbit with a name, a cage, and a booklet on caring for it, and a shop on the next street sells you a rabbit by weight. Almost nobody walking between those two windows experiences a jolt. That is how strong a category is. It can carry two opposite verdicts about a single species down one street and never feel the bump. None of this tells you what belongs on your plate. It tells you something stranger than that. The line you feel so certain about, the one that separates family from food, was never discovered by looking closely at animals. It was drawn first. The looking came afterwards, and it politely arranged itself to agree. So go back to your kitchen. The bowl on the floor and the plate on the table are one step apart, and the two animals in them are nowhere near as different as that step makes them feel. What stands between them is not intelligence, or loyalty, or the shape of a face. It is a decision somebody made a very long time ago, in a place you have never been, about which animals get names and which ones get numbers. Everything you feel about them was built on top of that, afterwards, to make it feel like it had always been true.